Okay, so I love the title of this next session, this next panel, Tech to Connect, from distraction to intention. We kind of, and probably this resonates a bit to you, because we talked a bit about it. We said some times ago, this morning and afterwards, that today we need more than ever that technology is not only for connecting us, it's also to take care of us or to look after us in a way. And in a city, and we're discussing this, in a city such as Barcelona, one out of 8 of the adolescents, which is a 13%, feel alone, and they are not looking for that. So in this session, we want to talk about all that, and we want to analyze these digital environments as a site for empathy, pertinence, and connection, authentic connection. We want to do that with Liliana Arroyo. She's lecturer and chair for the socially responsible digital innovation at ESADE. So please, welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for Tech Spirit to dedicate these 30 minutes to talk about connection, right? Human connection. And that's why we are inviting you to this journey that goes from distraction to intention. I'm a sociologist, so let me make a question first, just because this is the way I know reality. So how many of you have the feeling that when you pick up your phone, it's like a rabbit hole that you take it to answer one message, and after 30 minutes, you have done many different things without responding that message? Okay, yeah. Don't feel guilty. It's not your fault. It's by design, okay? So that's the framework that we will be using for these 30 minutes. So yes, I'm here to remind you that connections matter, and I'm sure that you are aware of that it's important that we have acquaintance, that we have friends, that we have family, that we have bonds and ties to people that connect us and that provide us support and that make us feel less alone, okay? But it's not just the experience. Also, we have evidence led by Robert Waldinger. Maybe you know him. It's a psychiatrist, which is really well known because he has been conducting the first study on adult development. And it's a longitudinal study, a panel study, which is incorporating information of 8 different decades, 3 generations, and is the Harvard study of adult development. You can look for it and you can read the full conclusions, but as a sociologist, I'm quite happy that this study, what points, it's that having strong social ties and a satisfying relationship, so the network, the web of relations that we are embedded in, it's one of the greatest sources of health and happiness, okay? And not only this, the thing is that people who have good social relationships at the age of 50, this is a very good predictor of the health that they are going to have when they are 80, okay? And if we compare this with other biomarkers, what we find is that good social health is more important than cholesterol or blood pressure, right? Despite we live in a society where the biomedical model is quite implemented, and then the social aspects sometimes can be overlooked. But this study is demonstrating that social connections matter. Not only connections, but also social connections. And from sociology, what we know is that every human being, what needs to fulfill and to thrive and to flourish, it's to be, so to have an identity, but also to belong, to be part of a community, to be recognized and included as part of that community. And being and belonging, it's something that it's particularly interesting when you are a teenager and adolescent, and more in hyperconnection times, right? So some numbers, and people has already mentioned a couple of statistics. So 25%, these are data of the world. This is retrieved from a study by Meta and Gallup, so the statistic office in the US. And in this multinational study, they found that 25% of people between 15 and 18 years declare unwanted loneliness. So they feel lonely, they feel excluded, they feel that are not belonging to a group or to a community, so they feel really alone, they feel really set apart, right? And this is how 1 every 4 young people in the world it's feeling at the moment, okay? It's really concerning. And in the city of Barcelona, where we are now, what we have found, and this is data from the city council, it's that teenagers from 12 to 19, they are 4 times lonelier than those seniors plus 65. And normally, so the social imagination that we have around the matter is that elder people are lonely because they live lonely, because they might have ties to family and some friends, but not that often. And normally we overlook the loneliness by teenagers and adolescents and young adults because they are part of a social system in education or in associations of sport and so on. But just because they are surrounded by people, it's not meaning that they are not feeling this loneliness or this isolation. And more particularly in hyper-connected times. So we are living in a moment that connectivity is ensured. So access to connection and to devices, it's really ensured. So it's just a tiny portion, those who are suffering digital divide. So the digital divide in terms of proficiency or capacity of use, it's completely different. But what we know is that in the EU, the European Union, 97% of young adults use internet and social media platforms every day. And now we could also add here AI for general purpose, right? But this is not solving their emotional isolation, but often it's amplifying it. As a result, what we're finding in different, across countries, is that our youth is hopeless, sad, and divided in terms of affective polarization and political polarization. And this is not by random facts. It's for certain things, but to a certain extent, it's in part also by digital design, right? So what we are here to claim about, it's about, we think from the Chair for Socially Responsible Digital Innovation, what we think is that we are in a context of market failure, okay? Because most of the digital platforms that are sustaining our social lives, so this is social media primarily, are built and designed, okay, under the attention economy context and lines, right? So on the one side, they are optimizing engagement, but engagement understood as the engagement or connection or affection between the person and the platform, and not between people, right? Not among people. So the incentives that reward this engagement are more content, echo chambers, filter bubbles, and so on. And to do that, what they are using is certain mechanisms as dark patterns, which are part of deceptive and persuasive design, right? So all these behaviors that we said at the beginning, that you unlock your phone and you are lost in a series of notifications and pop-ups and so on, it's not your fault, again. It's something which is by design, because it's the response to a business model that basically what they want to, it's to capture our attention and then create value based on the data that they are gathering after our interactions with the platform, right? So one of the implications of that is that we see that the digital environments, far from connecting us better, which it can be in some cases, what they do, for sure, is to amplify pre-existing vulnerabilities in terms of mental health, in terms of social vulnerability, isolation, and also with loneliness, right? And this is particularly acute in the context of young adults, as we have seen the numbers. Many of you probably are familiar with the ban of the Australian government to social media. Any of you have heard of that? Yes, it has started today. If you're curious about that, the BBC has created like a live blog where they are gathering basically the responses of adolescents and young adults in front of this ban. And there are some posts that show that many young and adolescents have been like kind of mourning for the night, waiting for their accounts to be blown away. They express feelings of uncertainty because, for instance, if they are 14, they know that they won't be able to get back into their accounts. If they are still there, they don't know, in 2 years' time, and it's generating a sort of distress. You can also read some positions that are like kind of being thankful to this initiative, in particularly families, that they are grateful because they think that the problem is step aside, right? and also some young adults that are not frequent or heavy users of social media. The thing is, the debate is there. It's true that we need to do something, but if we keep putting fences to the field, people can find ways to jump these fences, right? And actually, some of the young adults that are writing in this BBC blog, they are explaining the strategies they have to jump over the fence or down the fence or to avoid it to some extent, right? So I really love this quote by Toni Morrison, which says, "Dream a little bit before you think," right? And now that we have all the world like really expectant on how this ban in Australia it's going on, and how are they developing different pilots for age gating, and how are they ensuring that these platforms cannot be used by teenagers under 16, and so on and so forth. What if we could think in a different sense, right? What if we could invite the industry and the digital initiatives, corporations, founders, tech leaders that you are in the room? If you are in the digital sector, if you are building digital platforms for connecting people, what if we moved the incentives from distraction to intention, right? So from capturing value and grabbing our attention to generate more pro-social platforms and more empathetic digital spaces where we can flourish and where we can grow. What would happen if we do that, okay? Again, for me, the metaphor is that we are putting fences to the field, but maybe what we need to rethink is how we cultivate the land. So this is about incentives and about business models beyond the attention economy. So as Toni Morrison said that we have to dream a little bit before we think and before we get rational, we think that now it's time to dare. Now it's time to dare and to reclaim responsible tech that it's aiming for meaningful bonding. Instead of polarizing, instead of setting us apart, instead of encapsulating us in echo chambers, what we really need is better bonding, it's more tolerance, and also to train our capacity to live within diversity and to relate to that diversity, right? And also like being able to stand difference. We can agree that we disagree, but there's an agreement at the end of the day, right? So now it's time to dare, and I think that Tech Spirit is a good place to ask for brave adventurers that we have seen for the whole day now. So we are two institutions that have been dreaming together that this step from distraction to intention can be possible. And at ESADE, we are launching this chair for socially responsible digital innovation. The acronym is already, right? And we're doing this also thanks to the funding of the XAI Impact, the Puig Family Foundation. And we have in front of us a 3-year project that has started this last September, right? And I'm here to explain you what is this project about, but also have a call to action that can be compelling for many people in the room. So what do we have in our plan? What's our roadmap, right? The purpose and vision, it's basically like a translation into a project of the context that I said at the beginning. So we think that we deserve, that we can reclaim better digital spaces where we can thrive, that are pro-social, that are healthy, and that are genuinely positive, okay? We also think that we have a lot of room to imagine transformative business models that go beyond datification and that go beyond capturing attention. So we think that it's the time to put best practices on it, because these transformative business models are already existing, but are not in the top of mind. So one of the purposes of the project is precisely to make them visible, to assess them, and to explain them to the industry so they can be more popular, right? And also this pro-social and meaningful innovation. So to what extent can we foster technology to enrich and to improve our social lives and our collective digital spaces? So this chair, of course, it's landed in a business school, which is ESADE, and we have 3 foundational pillars for these 3 years. The first one is research, so it's rigor-based or evidence-based, what we're going to do. The second is implementation, and the third one is transfer, right? At the research level, what we are aiming for is basically to provide rigor and scientific evidence to ground our work in this solid foundation. So it's not only my opinion or certain studies. We are preparing reports to sustain and to explain and to ground all what we are explaining today. But we think that implementation is the cornerstone, because we want to change things. We don't want our reports to stay on a desk full of dust. So what we want them is to activate. So what we do, it's research based on action, and that's why the implementation phase in the shape of a community of practice, I will tell you more in a minute, it's like the cornerstone of the project. Because at the end of the day, what we are aiming for, it's basically to transfer this knowledge into a standard or a white book or best practices or even a self-assessment tool that the industry you can use while you try to develop like relational digital spaces, right? So I said implementation for us is key, and that's why I said that it's the cornerstone, because we can get some assumptions and we can do some field work, but we want to test it, okay? And I started the presentation talking about the importance of social relations at the age of 50, and also about data on youth and loneliness, right? And what we think is that we don't have a parenting problem with social media, we don't have a regulatory problem, we have a societal problem in that part. And we think also that young people are normally overlooked and underheard. So we want to generate a lab for co-creation, which is youth-led, right? So this is Soredi Lab. Soredi is the acronym, again, for Socially Responsible Digital Innovation. Imagine a lab where the ecosystem, so the full ecosystem can be part of it. You can see that we have, like in red color, we have here the youth, okay? Young people, actually we have an open call for people between 16 and 20 years that they are willing to be part and active creators of their digital present and future, right? But also we have the industry on the bottom, on the top of the circle. We have infrastructure, we have software developers, we have hardware developers, and we know that there are some projects that are aligned with responsible innovation in terms of gaming, in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of social media platforms, and so on and so forth. Also in social robotics, and so on. And we are gathering now some companies, so we're ready for the call. So youth at the center, the infrastructure and the digital technological sector of Barcelona and surroundings as co-responsible of this digital future, but also entities, administrations, and other academic institutions, because, as I said, we think that this is a societal problem that requires multiple perspectives and interdisciplinary, right? So basically at this Soredi Lab, where we are launching now, it's conceived as a co-creation space that we will gather for 3 years several times, right? And the idea is to develop best practice, identify them, and if they are not there, maybe create and invent them, always youth-led, right? Then we will have a space for dynamic testing, where we could be testing, prototyping, and so on. And we also remember that we have the 3 pillars, so we will also have hand-in-hand the research phase. So we will be assessing, and we will be generating data and studies and insights based on that. So afterward, we can explain what is working and why, and which option is better than the other. So everything is clear there. Always with young voices at the center, right? So we think that the combination is original, and this is a welcoming space for anyone who is believing that it's time for responsible innovation, right? So the idea is that the journey starts soon, and the first gathering of this community of practice will be launched in mid-February, and as I said, we are welcoming companies, founders, investors, tech leaders, and anyone who is in for that. Even if you don't have any project, maybe that's the space where you can discover your next project, your next funding, your next initiative, okay? So feel welcome on that. And also we are aiming to count with more than 50 young participants that want to be co-creators of their digital futures, right? We also think that the place to do that is Barcelona because of the vibrant ecosystem, but also because there has been some social movements in front of this discomfort on how social media is working. Also, the city council for many years has been working for Barcelona being the capital for humanism, technological humanism. We also have the Mobile World Congress here. So we have, many ingredients that make that this place, it's like the narrative is all there and all the ingredients are also there. And we think that the moment is now. Now that in Australia they are banning, now that that families are worried about that, now also that the industry is seeing some backlash in terms of trust on their platforms, right? Because many of you maybe are familiar that also, like for example, after several examples of bad use and overuse and so on, Instagram, for instance, was installing and deploying certain measures for teenager protection, right? But there's a report by an ex-Instagram engineer that it's demonstrating mechanism by mechanism why these mechanisms are not working properly, or that these mechanisms are even creating further vulnerabilities for those that are already vulnerable. So all the fences that we put in the field are not enough, or at least are not the only measure that we can lean on, right? Because this is a societal problem. So the idea of this journey is that for the 3 years we will have the opportunity to create 5 or 6 groups of teenagers and young adults between 16 and 20 years old, right? Each team will be mentored by an organization. We already have some organizations involved. One of them is Balance Phone. I don't know, is any of you familiar with Balance Phone? No? Okay. It's an interesting initiative because it's co-created by, actually it's funded by 2 young boys from Barcelona. They are in Barcelona Activa incubated, so I don't know if anyone from Barcelona Activa is already here, but this morning they were at least. And they designed the software for the phone, for Android phones, that they wanted to have in their phones. So they were born and raised in digital domains, and their families were saying, you cannot have a phone because it's a matter of distraction, it's a black hole, it's a rabbit hole, right? And then at some point they said, if I want my phone for calling, if I want my phone for checking the map when I need to go somewhere, if I want to check my financial status and so on, why do I need all the distraction industry in my pocket? And what they did was to develop a software which is free from distraction, okay? And this software started to win a lot of attention in the UK, and then Samsung, which is a really well-known company, contact them, and they are now supplying the Balance Phone based on a Samsung device, right? So yes, we see that the industry is also in favor of that, and not only from the big tech platforms, but also there are many other different projects around that can be helping to that direction, right? So that's the idea. So as I was saying, this community practice, it will be built around circles of different roles, and we are working with Platonic, which is a foundation which is located at Canòdrom Digital de Barcelona. So everything it's from Barcelona, as you see, and they are providers of this methodology for several European projects in terms of digital democracy and so on. And they also have some, a large experience on creating communities that are youth-led for a certain purpose. And the idea is to create a sort of competition between the different teams, right? And the different companies that will be mentoring them. And on the second year, the mission is to identify 2 prototypes. And by prototypes, we understand projects, initiatives, something really wide, which is not the next app for blah, 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 or the next app for a digital detox, or the next app for balancing connection and disconnection, which, of course, it's something interesting, right? But it's to generate 2 prototypes that can be changing the game, okay? And this covered with research, but also, as I mentioned before, with the transfer mindset really present for the whole journey. So at the end of the day, what we investigate, what we prototype, what we learn, what we assess in this community, it's going to be translated in something which is applicable for the industry and adoptable by the industry, okay? So that's the idea. So the prototypes will be on the second year, and the third year we will be trying to convert this and to assess that for the industry. Okay. So this is pretty much what we wanted to share. As I said, this is an initiative that it's really young at the moment. It was born like or kick-started in September. We have been working in the field for many years on that sense, but we really think that it's interesting that the business school is part of this agenda, and that given that we are connecting with the leaders in our rooms, in our programs, not the leaders from the present, but also the leaders of the future, and they can be co-creators, or you can be co-creators, because I see many young people in the room. So just please feel invited to be part of this journey. This is not something that we can do alone from ESADE or from XAI Impact or even our community of practice, but we need the ecosystem. So that's why we think that Tech Spirit is the best place to announce this and also to make this call to action. So before I finish, let me play a bit. You have here the QR code. It's not a Slido for voting projects as a Catalan pitch competition, but it's just a form for registering your interest, where you can explain if you are willing to contribute to the community to some extent, if you have identified best practices and so on. We are open to listen to your projects or projects you might know about. And also maybe you just want to be informed. So just click the box of, yes, I'm interested. I don't know yet how can I contribute, but just keep me posted. So that's the idea. And that's all for today. So thank you so much for your attention. And hopefully you are also joining Soredi. And we also love this, Mike here from the team is here. And we always love to finish our presentations playing a bit with the acronym of Soredi. And the question is, are you so ready to change things as well? Then join us.